welcome back to my channel. My name is Catherine Torvell and you're watching the No B-Roll Life while getting out of debt. So nothing fancy here other than getting out of debt in 2021. So I have my notebook here and we are going to talk about my aha moment of when it was basically the sad state of my finances were causing me a lot of stress. And so I wanted to share that story with you. So today's video is going to be a longer video, so apologies. So please stay tuned till the end while we talk about it. So let's just hop straight into it and go over it. So it was October 2016, and I will just preface this with I had a lot going on at the time. And that a lot going on at the time was that, one, I was working a lot of overtime, and two, I was also being asked to make a decision about my rental accommodation. So my landlord had not increased my rent for probably about 3 years, and he was making that determination to raise it. Now, it was a hefty raise though. It was 250 pounds more, and what he was asking me to do was to move into another accommodation while he then fixed that one up to justify the rent increase. And at that point in time, I was really already stressed about so many things. I didn't think that it was feasible. Now, hindsight being 2020, it probably would have worked out whereby I should have stayed at that place, and it was for a lot of different factors. One, where I ended up moving to, it was further away, and I ended up paying more in diesel. I had more expenses for council tax, gas, electric, everything. So, you know, and trying to change utilities and everything. So it was probably at the time the wrong decision, but I don't think that sometimes you realize that it's the wrong decision until you're there. And that was the unfortunate state of it. So October 22nd, 2016, I had a very rare Saturday. So I went with some friends to Blackpool, whereby we just had a day excursion. So we took a packed lunch, we all brought a thermos, and it was probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, whereby we'd run out of our stuff for our thermos, and it was very brisk and cold. You know, we were all layered up and it was okay, but we decided, oh, let's go to McDonald's and get a coffee or something to eat. And so we did, and my friends went ahead and ordered while somebody rang me. So it was my job saying, this is the plan for Monday, are you okay with that? And I was like, yep, that's fine. And then so I went in and ordered, and basically I went and ordered, and I tried to use contactless on my card and it wouldn't work. And I was like, well, why isn't it working? And then I tried the chip and pin to enter the actual PIN number, and again, it didn't work. It was declined, and I couldn't understand why. And at that point in time, my phone, don't know, I could have tried to connect to Wi-Fi at McDonald's, but I didn't, to check my bank balance. So I had to wait till I got home. And when I did get home, I did check it, and I sat there and kind of like discussed with myself, thinking, oh my gosh, what have I become? Because I had pretty much met I was at my overdraft limit, and an unexpected bill had come in. I just sat there in complete, utter daze, saying, what am I going to do? I don't get paid for 6 days. Now, the good thing is that I had already gone shopping for my groceries for this coming week, so I had plenty of food in. I was not destitute at all. The next thing is that I knew I had about 35 pounds worth of cash, petrol in my car if I needed to. And at that point in time, I didn't really need to put petrol in my car. It was just there as a backup. So I made a really strict plan. I made a meal plan to get me through the next 6 days to be able to function. And because I was working basically from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. every single day, plus Saturdays. This overtime money couldn't come fast enough. Now, I knew that in November I was still going to be in my overdraft. It was always planned that my overdraft was going to take care of or the overtime money was going to take care of, one, my overdraft, to get me out of my overdraft, which was important to me. The next thing, it was going to be used for a new deposit, for the deposit for my new place, and any other moving expenses. So I did need to rent a van, as it were, to move some of the larger items. I was in my new place. I guess at that point in time, I kind of was like having to dip into my overdraft. Now, I did have about 800 pounds or so, I think, after it was all said and done, after the moving and the expenses and my overdraft, and a really large payment on my credit card. So that's where all that money went. And it was a lot of money. It was like it was over 4,000 pounds. I sold my TV. I never really watched it, and I didn't have, so I sold my TV. At that point in time, I then was able to get my TV license. Yes, that was only 13 pounds, but it all paid towards the debt. It was all then able to go towards my snowball. Watching more YouTube, as you do. So one thing I started to do is I started watching YouTube, and I found a couple of really great channels, and I just was interested in it, and I was really interested in the tiny house movement. Now, I get that the tiny house movement hasn't really come to the UK like it has to America. However, I then found van life. I found all of the van life communities and people like Eamon and Beck and the indie projects and the nomadic movement, and I saw how they were living their best life by traveling the world in a converted van. And I was like, well, that's cool, yeah, that's really cool. Now, I knew that I wasn't just going to be able to drop everything and go and buy a van that had either been converted or just a regular van to convert. I knew that I wouldn't just be able to drop everything and do that. However, what I did know about myself is that I could make sacrifices, and that sacrifice is downsizing from where I was, like with a 2-bedroom, and full loft house, to a, less than 100 square feet living space. I knew what I could do, and I knew I could do it, and I knew that it would be hard, and I knew that, people wouldn't understand, but I knew that I had to do it. And that was it. That was me kind of really dipping my thoughts in my mind and getting my mindset into that. So I started to list things on eBay and Gumtree and Shopok and Facebook Marketplace to sell and get rid of stuff. And at this point in time, I still hadn't even told my O. So my O is, he's super supportive in everything that I want to do, but I needed to make sure that I was really going to do it. And I think at this point in time, it was one of those things where I started to look for vans, and I was looking for vans, and I was struggling to find an automatic. And I was like, gosh, no automatics. And that's what my license was here in the UK. Come up with another solution. That other solution was for me to go to my O and say, this is what I want to do. And I guess at first he was like, you want to do what? He thought I was crazy, but of course, he supported me. Like, well, I need you to teach me how to drive a manual then, please. And in good faith, he did it, and we got through it. It was not easy, to say the least, and it tested our relationship beyond testing, as it will do. So I have to just kind of take a sidebar here and thank my O again for making those sacrifices and teaching me and getting me through that test, because with him I definitely couldn't have done it. So he put me on his insurance, and this was June 2017, and at this point in time we put me on his insurance, and off we went for lessons. So we then were going through the summer, and we did all of that, and then it was kind of getting to that point where I needed to make another decision. And the other decision was I going to stay in the current house I was? It was a month-to-month lease after 6 months, which is what I negotiated to do, because I knew that I wasn't going to I did not want to stay in that house long term. And I had two options, either van life or going into a shared accommodation. So a shared accommodation in the UK, if people don't know, is basically where it's a large house share. Basically, you have your room, you probably have, and you may then also have a bathroom, but you generally share a kitchen together. And it wasn't something that I wanted to do. However, I knew that to get out of debt, I needed to make additional changes. So I wasn't dipping into my overdraft every single month. And that was what I really wanted. I really wanted to get out of debt. On the 17th then of October 2017, I took my test. I did pass it. And then I guess it was in November of that month that my lease on my smart car was going to end. What it was apparent is it felt really good that I did still have some money from my overtime in December 2016 to be able to buy that and to, not have to worry. Now, with that Ford Focus, my insurance went up, and also it was a diesel instead of petrol, and it was a diesel guggler. It was like it ate through it. And so my expenses did go up with it, unfortunately, but it was what I needed at the time to try to help with my learning how to drive a manual long term. Like I said, I knew a lot of changes had to be made, so I gave notice on my existing place, and I was trying to determine if I was going into shared accommodation, if I couldn't find a van at that point. Now, I told my listen, I may need to stay with you for a few weeks, if that's okay, and he said yes, of course. It was so hard. So I knew as of March 1st, I really needed to either be in a new place where it was all, 500 pounds all in, and me being able to, pay that and then use the rest of the money that I was spending, and that would have been like 300 or 400 pounds that alone that I would have been able to spend on, my actual debt. So that's kind of where we were at that point. Looking for vans. Every alert that we could have on either Facebook or eBay or Shopok or Gumtree, they were all alerted to like any van that came up. In the head, and I had asked the guy, I said, listen, we really want to see these vehicles and test drive them. Can you please have them ready? Yep, not a problem. We'll see you on Saturday. And so we get there, and not a single one of them was pulled out of the yard, and none of them were even charged. So they had no charge on them. So we decided, let's take a look at the vans before we even ask for anything else to be done, and see if they are suitable for converting. And at the end, there was probably only one that was, and that was unfortunate. So we then popped the hood and gave it a good once over, and it wasn't the best news because there was an oil leak, and you could clearly see that there was an oil leak. So I think it was my dad that always used to say, anything to do with a vehicle, and do not buy it if it has an oil leak, because you just don't know what you're buying, and you could end up with lots of problems. My agreed, and we promptly left. So I kind of got a little bit of an I told you so from my because one, he hated dealers like this. Taking a drink. So we head back to the Manchester. I'm gonna ask my buddy if he knows of anybody. And I said, okay, that's cool. Let's do that. And he comes back out and he hands me, we'll just say this is the piece of paper. It's clearly not. It's in my van. I wish I actually had it for this video to show you guys. But it was basically a flyer to say that somebody was selling a Mercedes Sprinter van that was converted. It had everything. It had a heater, it had a shower, a toilet, a hob, a sink, a water pump. It had everything that you could probably imagine. It was pretty much everything that I wanted. Decor-wise, probably wasn't what I wanted, but at the end of the day, that's cosmetic, and that can all be changed at some point in time, so not a problem. So we call the guy immediately, and ask if we can come see it. He's like, yep. And so we rushed to the other side of where we were to go and see it. We spent about an hour and a half with it, and pretty much I looked at my O and I said, this is it. This is almost move-in ready. So we made the deal. We bought a van, and we then got it on the 22nd of February. So I'm gonna insert a photo here of my van so you guys can see it, and I hope that soon I'm gonna be able to give you a van tour. My van is currently, just so you are aware, it is being worked on. I'm having some welding done to it, so it's not currently in the drive. It needed a little bit of work, so it needed to have the bed area extended, and this took place on around the 18th of April. So and you're probably thinking, what happened between February and April? The weather was absolute pants. We had a really unseasonable, rainy, wet, snowy spring, and we couldn't finish the car boots. And also, but the day that we did finish the back of the van where we could actually put a full-size mattress on, that is when I taxed and insured it. From there, I then spent the next 10 days or so actually driving it, getting used to it. So I would drive it to work. I would then, then come back and stay at my O's house in the evening. But it was all about getting used to driving a long wheelbase vehicle. So don't forget, I went from a smart car to a Ford Focus to a long wheelbase vehicle. So it wasn't a little bit of adjustment. So at that point in time, I believe it was on around the 29th, 30th of April that I first slept in my van. So that's how the van life paying off debt journey began. Let's just say May 2018 to March 2020. That's how it really all began. Now, obviously, the pandemic changed everything in March of 2020. I was basically given a laptop and being sent home, and I was like, I got a problem. I don't have a home. It was then decided that I would stay here, and so I am eternally grateful to my O and his family, because if I didn't have that, I would have had to look quite quickly into accommodation. And trust me, that has come up. It has come up about should I get a place until this is all resolved, and it's been talked about is that no, it would then hinder my debt journey and paying off debt. And again, I cannot say this enough, but I am so thankful for my O for that mentality, because he has been able to help me with that. Because if it wasn't for him, then I would probably be living in rented accommodation still, and I would probably, but I wouldn't have a car at this point. I don't really have a car now because the van is, off-road and it's being worked on. So that is how it all got started. So in the next video, guys, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to break down my house life versus van life and my now pandemic lockdown life expenses, and how all of that has changed and what I've been doing during the pandemic, and how my baby steps and where I am at in the baby steps. So I am still at baby step number 2, but that is what the next video is going to be all about, guys. So thank you so much for watching. If you've gotten through all of this video, it is a longer video today, so thank you so much for staying tuned with me. Please comment, like, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you on the next video next Sunday.